بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين اللهم لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت السميع العليم اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. Last week we reached the birth of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but one of the brothers corrected me at the end and said it would be nice to know the names of the uncles and aunts of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam because some of them did become Muslim, and it's nice to know who they were. So we did say Abdul Muttalib had 16 children, 10 boys. Out of those, 6 of the boys died before the Bi'thah, and those were Az-Zubayr, Al-Muqaddam, Dirar, Hijl, Abdullah, and Al-Harith. And 2 did not become Muslim. One of them was his uncle who supported him, Abdul Manaf, so-called Abu Talib, and his enemy uncle, Abdul Uzza, so-called Abu Lahab. He was used to be called Abu Lahab because his face was red. He was red-faced, a lot of blood in it, so that's why he got this nickname. And 2 of his uncles became Muslims, and there was Hamza and Al-Abbas. And we'll come to the way and how they became Muslim as we get along the seerah, inshaAllah. His aunts were Umaymah, wa Arwa, wa Barra, wa Atika, wa Hakim, wa Safiya. There's no clear cut how many of them, but no, Safiya and Hakim were from the Muslims. I can't go on to the depth of the others. Now, the birth of the Prophet ﷺ did bring with it the signs, as we said last time, one of which was Hassan ibn Sabit when he said the Jews, one of the rabbi came shouting, tonight, the star of Ahmad has come out. And it would only come out to the birth of a prophet. And then his mother had no hardship in his labor and giving birth. He was circumcised, subhanallah. And one of the signs happened outside Al-Jazeera. It happened in Al-Madain in Persia. The palace of Kisra, he had 14 of its balconies falling and crashing down. And the fire of the Majus was off. And that was a fire that kept fueling regularly, so it never went down. But at the birth of the Prophet ﷺ, it's documented that their fire was switched off. And they could not understand that. Kisra went straight to his fortune tellers to ask them, what about these 14 that went down, 14 balconies? And they said, the throne of the Persian Empire will disappear after 14 kings. And Kisra said, 14 kings, it's a long time. Each of them used to live 20, 30 years. It's still a long time, don't worry about it. But when you look at it, subhanAllah, after the death of Kisra himself, Anushirwan, within 2 years, 10 kings died and they fought each other. And suddenly, within a short period of time, the whole thing went off. And Umar radiallahu anhu was, when they conquered Al-Madain, was on his days. Now, the Prophet was born sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the kids of Quraysh, they didn't used to raise them up in Mecca. There was reasons for this. Number 1, the language. Children, if they stayed in Mecca, there were a lot of people who come from all across the world and the globe mostly the Arab Peninsula, but from outside for Hajj. So they used to speak different dialects, and they did not want their children to have poor linguistic ability. Number 2, with all the people coming and traveling, diseases came with them. So children were susceptible of infection and other diseases. So for that reason, most of the Qurayshis used to send their children outside Mecca to be brought up in, as we call, the wild, but with tribes outside the city. Thirdly, when you're in a city, you start becoming civilized, as we call it, and weaken up. But when you're outside in the hardship, you get stronger. So they wanted their children to pick up that strength. Hence, almost every child that was born, they used to send them outside Mecca. On the time when the Prophet was born, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, a tribe called Bani Sa'd were coming by Mecca and coming to see if there are any children to take with them, and they would breastfeed them. Most of women had children, they would breastfeed another child with them. No finances were discussed. No one would say, oh, I'll take the child, you pay me so and so. It was a shame for a woman to say, I'm selling my milk. But it was a knowledge between them that if they take your child, you will give them something as support and help and build up their finances as well. So they need it. So everyone came to see Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When they heard he was orphan, no father, said, who's going to pay for this child? He wouldn't give us any money, so why take him? His grandfather might not pay, his uncle might not, so no one wanted him, subhanallah. They all went out. As they were at the outskirts of Mecca, Al-Harith, the husband of Halima as-Sa'diyah, looked at his wife and said, Ya Halima, why don't we just take this orphan? Maybe, just maybe, we can get some barakah just for him being an orphan. You never know what can happen to us. Let's go and get this orphan, not return without a child. And she had a baby herself, so she would say, okay, I'll breastfeed two, same as one. So she went and decided, okay, we'll take Muhammad, and took them back. Now, as soon as Muhammad ﷺ joined the group, the barakah started pouring on them. Halima was coming on a little donkey, a female donkey that was old, dragging the feet around, and everybody saying, go on, stop slowing us down, carry on, come with us. As soon as Muhammad was with them, she got all the energy and started racing everybody to the front and trying to hold the donkey, slow down. And everyone was saying, what happened to your donkey, Halima? Just slow down. Is it the same one or is it different? And wallahi, it's the same one, nothing happened. And suddenly it started as well, even the donkey started pouring milk. So she got back her energy and her health and everything as an animal. They arrived back there, back to their tribe, and they started breastfeeding Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Halima used to say before that, said, before I took Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, I could hardly just find enough food to eat, let alone to have enough breast milk for my son. But as Muhammad joined us, I was able to feed both of them, and they would feel full to the top, both of them, without any hardship. Her cattle started growing bigger and fatter, to the degree that the whole tribe used to go and smack the shepherds, say, go and feed the cattle where Halima's cattle is feeding. Say, wallahi, we go at the same spot. We are eating the same, grass, if whatever is available. But this is the barakah of the Prophet ﷺ being with them. Usually they used to keep them for a year, two. After 2 years, most of the children want to go back families, so they took Muhammad back to his family. And his mother, Amina, wanted him to stay with her. That's it, keep him now. He spent his time with you, now it's time for me to have my son with me. Halima insisted to take him back. She said, no, I fear for him, the diseases, ill health. There's still Hujjaj coming around with their diseases. Keep him, please, I'll look after him. After negotiation, they agreed, okay, fine. Muhammad ﷺ went back as a baby, 2 years old, with Halima back around. Few months after that event, his brother from the son of Halima came running to his mother, looking really scared. He said, oh mother, my brother Al-Qurashi, my brother from Quraysh. He said, what happened? He said, 2 men came and put him down to the ground. So she ran with him. Where is he? Went there, found Sayyidina Muhammad as a 2-year-old boy, lying on the ground, pale, looking. She said, what happened? He said, I don't know. 2 men dressed in white came and brought me to the ground. The Prophet ﷺ, it's narrated clearly in hadith that he discussed with his Sahaba later, and he said at that stage 2 angels, of course he was talking when he was older, came to me. They put me to the ground. They split my chest open. And they took my heart out. Open heart surgery. SubhanAllah, in those days. They got a golden pot with water from Zamzam. And they cleaned and cleansed my heart and washed it. And they took a small clock out of it and told him, this is what the shaitan could have gotten from you. And they threw it away. So Allah has purified his heart from the little part that shaitan could get into him from, just so he can be prepared for the next phase of being a Nabi. And the Prophet ﷺ does say in another hadith, إن في الجسد مضغة إذا صلحت صلح الجسد كله وإذا فسدت فسد الجسد. There is a little part in the body that if it is good, the whole body will be good. And if it is bad, the whole body will get bad and rotten. ألا وهي القلب. And this is the heart. And he's not talking as the heart having a heart attack disease. It's an Islam or being with Allah disease or kufr disease. So they took Muhammad was so shaken and pale, and even when he got older there were signs of the stitches on his chest. You could still see the scars, the Sahaba, when he showed them his chest, there were scars. So that's why I said open heart surgery. It was literally and stitched up. So Halima was scared. What happened to this boy? What's going on? She took him back to his mother. Said, there is your son. He's safe. He's well. Alhamdulillah. You take him. Amina said, what happened? Said, nothing. He's well. I think you wanted him, so we decided, okay, no, we don't want to deprive you from your son at an early age. Said, no, la wallah, something has happened. What has happened? So Halima explained, this is what happened to him. There were 2 men, cracked his chest, and he was pale and were afraid that he can die. So we wanted him to be with you. So Amina said, did you fear that he might have been affected by jinn? Or is he going to be a problem? He said, yes. He said, la wallah. No. Before I gave birth to him, I saw in my dream someone saying, when he is born, say, أُعِيذُكَ بِاللَّهِ الْوَاحِدِ مِنْ شَرِّ كُلِّ حَاسِدٍ. I seek refuge by Allah the only from the eye of everyone who is to envy him. So nothing will harm this boy. His mother had that belief in her, subhanAllah. Then Abdul Muttalib was another man who was poor. He used to spend all his money on Hujjaj for the water, for the feeding, so he had no money to stay to keep with him. Hence, when Muhammad ﷺ grew older, at 6 years old, his mother died. So it was his grandfather to look after him completely in totality. When he was 6, then 7, he felt that something is not right with the family, so he wanted to help. He was working as a shepherd. And he kept working as a shepherd until he was 21 years old. And he said, Allah has not sent a prophet except they work as a shepherd. All prophets, alayhim salam, did that job. And they say, ulama say, because it gives you time to feel about the animal rights. Now everybody keep talking about it. But they felt for the animal. The tranquility of being as a shepherd as well. You learn patience. Patience with animals, let alone to be patient with humans. Thirdly, you're sitting, all the animals are eating on the grass. You're just sitting and thinking, dreaming, sleeping. This gives the Anbiya time to think of the creation of Allah, which is ibadah unfortunately we have forgotten or have become lazy with. Ibadat al-tafakkur, just to think of the signs on the creation of Allah. Now, I've recently heard that NASA think there might be a 9th planet, and they showed pictures and what do the people say? Oh, wow, what's going on? What do the Muslims say? Subhanallah. This is dhikr. But how do we do the dhikr? Just thinking of the creation of Allah. How many, all these planets, the expansion of the universe. We keep hearing all the new generation electronics, technology, space, everything that a human is creating is not creating out of the blue. It's creation because Allah wants it to be created, and He's given the knowledge to the human. Subhanahu ya Allah, He's given us this knowledge. But what do we do with it? We use it for bad. So may Allah forgive us, inshallah, and get us to use everything to the best of humanity. Now, another thing he learned from being with his grandfather is how to deal with elders. His grandfather was the leader of Mecca, the only leader, Abdul Muttalib. So he used to attend meetings with his grandfather in Darun Nadwa with all the elders. So he learned how to sit and talk, and the negotiations and the talks, and how to respect others, and the strangers coming, how you deal with strangers, how you deal with someone who is a higher ranky and lower ranky. How do you judge as a judge amongst people? Because everything used to come to Darun Nadwa. Anybody who had a quarrel, they would go there. Can you sort it out? He learned all this within that period. SubhanAllah put him in a position to learn the whole lot from childhood. His grandfather died. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. His uncle Abu Talib was the elder of his sons. Then he took over the leadership of Mecca, and he looked after Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And Abu Talib noticed that his nephew does not gather with the boys and fight. He was poor as well, same as his father, because he helped as well, took over the hajjaj and the feeding and the water. He was poor himself. So as soon as food came in, all his children, and he had many children, would run and fight over the food. Muhammad ﷺ would not. He would just sit back and wouldn't quarrel with the children. After a while, Abu Talib noticed that, so he asked his wife, he said, can you keep a portion of food on the side for Muhammad? He does not fight with those boys. And he kept, of course, attending Dar al-Nadwa, learning from the elders. Now, as he said, he was a shepherd from age 8 to 21. And during that time, his uncle used to go and trade between Yemen and Syria, which is the usual. إِلَافِ قُرَيْشٍ إِلَافِهِمْ رِحْلَةَ الشِّتَاءِ وَالصَّيْفِ. In winter they go to Yemen, in summer they go to Sham, and keep that trade in between. One day, his uncle was going to trade, and Muhammad ﷺ just jumped and grabbed him. I want to go with you. He said, no, you can't. Say, I want to come with you. He was 12 years old then. And he would not leave his uncle. So his uncle, okay, it's fine. We'll take him. Let's take Muhammad with us. They took him and went. As they arrived to the outskirts of Syria, or Damascus, there was a monastery there that the Qurayshis usually just stop by and have a rest there, because next to the monastery there will be some water, some green. Have a rest, a break, drink, eat. The leader of that monastery then was a monk called Bahira, or Buhaira, depending on who pronounces it on what part. Buhaira was looking at the caravan, and he noticed something different. As it was moving, there was a little cloud moving with it, constantly shading this caravan. And he was a learned person, so he knew that this is a time for a prophet as well, because all Bani Israel and the Christians had the signs and they knew that there is a time for a prophet. And he knew it, and he was looking for it. When he saw that cloud coming, he said, SubhanAllah, this caravan has something. So he asked all the monks with him, he said, make a big feast, prepare a meal. And sent one of them to the caravan and said, bring everybody in, don't leave any single person out. You're all invited inside. They all went in, sat down, had the meal, and they were eating. And Bahira was looking and looking and looking. There's nothing different about these people. You know, what is that cloud doing there? Nothing around the chain. And he said, are you all here, or have you left anybody outside with the caravan? So one of the people said, Wallahi, we are really bad and mean people. He said, why? He said, we are here eating all this nice food, and we left the orphan out. And Bahira said, what orphan? Bring him here. So they brought him in. That's the first sign to Bahira, an orphan, because it is a sign to them that he will be an orphan that knew the Nabi. So they got him in, and they started eating, and Bahira asked the Prophet ﷺ, he said, I ask you by Allati wal Uzza. They're gods, the gods of the Arabs, he knows about them. Muhammad ﷺ said, do not ask me by these two. Wallahi, I have never hated anything like I hate them. And he was 12 years old. He said, then I ask you by Allah. He said, okay, ask. So he started asking, what do you do? What's your life? How you do, what you do in your lifetime now? Who looks after you? And then he asked Abu Talib, he said, what is this boy to you? He said, he's my son. He said, no, wallahi, this boy's father should be dead. He said, yes, he is my nephew. I'm looking after him. His father did die. He said, okay, I'll ask you to request one thing from you. Take your nephew back to Mecca. Wallahi, if he reached Syria and the Jews see him, they will recognize him and kill him. Abu Talib could not understand what's happening, what's going there. He said, listen. He said, okay. So Abu Talib sent Muhammad back with a man and said, take him back to Mecca. And he continued his trip, the trade, and back. And this was one sign that Muhammad will have something different when he grows. Abu Talib had a sign that came to him, Allah sent to him. SubhanAllah, he protected the Prophet ﷺ for too many things. We know that he never made sujood to any idol. It's number one. He never drank alcohol. He never lied, to the level that he was known in Mecca and across the Arab Peninsula as a whole, that he was as-sadiqul amin, the truthful and the one who's honest. And you can protect your life to him, and he will protect it for you. Alayhi salatu wassalam. He even never listened to music. And there was a narration that once told his Sahaba that once when he was a shepherd, he heard some noise, and he asked his friend, said, what's this? He said, oh, it might be a wedding. He said, can you look after my cattle? I'll just go because I've never seen a wedding. And he went to see. As soon as he got closer, he fell asleep and he slept. He woke up next morning with the sun about to burn him. He just went. A few days later, same thing happened again. He said to his friend, I didn't see it last time. I went to sleep. I couldn't, so please. He said, okay, just go. I'll look after them. The same thing happened again. As soon as he got closer to see what's going on there, he fell asleep. So Allah protected him from seeing what happens in those type of weddings and from listening to the music and the dancing. And wala hawla wala quwwata illa billah, we see a lot of Muslims nowadays now doing all the weddings that are against Sharia and against Islam. May Allah protect us and keep us away from all this, inshallah. And I only say, if you make the niyyah that when your children or you as youngsters want to get married, make the niyyah that I want the wedding that Allah would accept. Allah will make it happen no matter what your surrounding asks you to. It will happen. Allah will make people who want it otherwise do it the way you want it. So just niyyah, clear inshallah. One other thing happened in Mecca usually, because Quraysh made a decision that no one makes tawaf around the Kaaba except from clothes bought in Mecca. Trade. That's what, after everything, Amr ibn Luhay changed too many things. And as I said earlier, Amr ibn Luhay changed it, and some people started being tawaf, doing naked. The Prophet ﷺ never did that. Even once he was trying to carry some heavy load, his uncle said, why don't you just relax your cloth and put it on your shoulder so you can walk instead of hurting your shoulder. And as soon as he was about to do it, he just collapsed. So Allah protected him, not uncover his private. Now, the manners that he learned, because Abu Talib, as we said, was poor, and the children, he learned that he doesn't quarrel, he was the honest, as-sadiq al-amin, and one thing he helped with, as before Islam, was what we call Harb al-Fujar. Harb al-Fujar is a war that happens during the month of al-Haram, Ashhur al-Hurum, and it's documented before that time. The Arabs have fought 4 Harb Fujar. They fought 4 times in Al-Ashhur al-Haram. And that was the 5th time when Hawazin came to attack Quraysh in Al-Shahr al-Haram. So the Prophet ﷺ said, I did help my uncles in Harb Fujar, and I was handing the arrows to my uncle. So he was involved in a war, just to learn how to defend yourself. If people attack you, you defend yourself. So he learned defense. And the special story of Al-As, the father of Amr ibn al-As, I'm not going to mention his name because Allah decided that, decreed that he should not be nicknamed. إِنَّا أَعْطَيْنَاكَ الْكَوْثَرَ فَصَلِّ لِرَبِّكَ وَانْحَرْ إِنَّ شَانِئَكَ هُوَ الْأَبْتَرُ. The father of Amr al-As said, Muhammad, don't do anything. His name will be wiped out. He said he is the word, in Arabic word, sumbur. He does not have male children. His children are all female, so his name will be wiped out. Don't ignore him. No one will remember him in the future. So Allah says, Inna shani'aka huwa al-abtar. The one who is giving you that hint that your name will be wiped, no one would remember it. This one, his name will not be remembered. So not many of the Muslims, alhamdulillah, know him, except people who go into the depths of the history. His name is documented, but he's the father of Amr ibn al-As. And he was a tradesman as well. And one day, a man from Yemen came and sold him stuff and said, okay, I'll pay you later. He said, fine. This man stayed in Mecca a day, 2, 3, and went to him and said, where's my money? He said, oh, later. And kept delaying him until one day he said, you have no money with me. What can you do? Go hit your head to the wall. I'm one of the highest, honest, honorable men in Mecca. You are just a man from nowhere. You can't do anything to me. So this man went straight to Darul Nadwa, where Quraysh, as I said, they gathered, and everything that happens in that place. And he went there and started complaining about injustice of Mecca and Quraysh, and that he will just tell the whole Arabs that Quraysh are people who deceive and they steal your money, and they'll be dishonored because of this event. Of course, they couldn't do anything. So 3 men, they say their old first name was Al-Fadl. This is why it was the Treaty of Al-Fudul. They started saying that they decided, the 3 men said, we will start now a new treaty. Any person who has been robbed, attacked, anything, we will get their right back. No matter what happened, even if we die, we'll take our swords and defend that person, being a stranger or non-stranger, until the right is back to them. And the Prophet ﷺ at that time, he was in his 20s, he joined them. He said, I will be one of you. And then few men gathered. And they went to the father of Amr ibn al-As, knocked on his door, and took the swords. Said, give this man his money or we will cut your head off your body. No argument. This is the honor of Quraysh you're playing with. He said, yeah, fine. Just give the man his money. That's it. Go. That man could not believe it. So, alhamdulillah, he got his money back. Couldn't, from on. The Prophet ﷺ did say afterwards, even after Islam, he said, I was called in Jahiliyyah to a treaty. If I am called for it in Islam, I will follow. He will sign into it because it's something to help the oppressed people. And this is something from the kind of the manners of Muslim, to help people who are oppressed. And Hilf al-Fudul continued, by the way, even after the death of the Prophet ﷺ. When in Medina, there's the ruler there, was Al-Walid. He was unjust to Al-Husayn ibn Ali, radiallahu anhu. And Al-Husayn went to him, he said, Wallahi, if you do not give me my right, I will call for the Treaty of Al-Fudul. And one of the Sahaba sitting next to him was Abdullah ibn Zubayr, and he was well known to be one of the tough fighters. He said, Wallahi, if he calls for Hilf al-Fudul, I will take my sword up and I will not put it down except you give him his right back or I die fighting you. So it continued amongst the Arab, this treaty, until Allahu A'lam when, and then it died with the death of the Arabian Peninsula. Now, why I say this treaty? Because as again we say that we all go around treaties, the world, we hear a lot of treaties, international, national, United Nations. Anything that has the good for humanity, we should be part of it. We should not shy away and say, oh, this is not a treaty by Muslims. It doesn't matter. It's a treaty for the good of humanity. One event that changed the life of the Prophet ﷺ suddenly was Khadija bint Khuwaylid. She was a wealthy woman who was widowed more than once, and she sent people to trade with her money. She's a woman, she couldn't trade herself, travel, so she used to give money to people and say, trade, buy, sell for me and take your share, whatever, commission or whatever decision they decide on. She heard, of course, of the Prophet that he's a sadiqul ameen, someone who is trustworthy, and she decided, okay, why don't I give him part of my money to trade with? She discussed that, gave him money, and sent with him one of her slaves called Maysara. And the Prophet ﷺ went with the caravan to Syria. He reached Syria. He was so kind to Maysara, sold everything there, made money, bought more stuff, came back to Mecca, sold, and got double the reward. Quraysh used to just go with the money to Syria with a bit of dates and back, or unless they bought something from Yemen to Syria and so on. So but the Prophet took some stuff with him, sold it and back, so he got double the finance for him. Because he was trustworthy and honest, he was honest with the accounts when he gave them to Khadija, radiallahu anha. And she noticed that there was difference in the accounts here. She made more money. Is it because he was a better trader? Is it because he was more honest? Or is it both? Alayhi salatu wassalam. Maysara, when he came back, Khadija asked him, what do you think of Muhammad as a person to keep on looking after my trade? He said, Wallahi, I could not believe this man. He was so gentle. He never treated me as a slave, number one. He was just treating me as equal. Whenever we were going through our trip, there was always a cloud covering us. I never saw the sun as the heat of the sun as he used to be. There was something protecting us. When he was selling, he was so kind to the people, and they were always loving to come to buy with him. So it was so easy. As I'm saying, not so tough. Oh no, it's 10p, it must be 10p. It's okay, 9, 8, what have you got? Let's buy and sell. It was so easy on buying and on selling. And when he came back, he was so honest with all the accounts to you. So Khadija just started thinking, an honest man. I'm a widow, a lonely woman. She started thinking, is there a way of marrying Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? But of course the Arabs women do not just go and say, offer marriage. So she knew a lady who used to, look for wives for men rather than looking for husbands for women. And she was talking to her about Muhammad and said, yeah, why don't I'll talk to him. And she was called Nafisa. So she went to Muhammad, said, yeah, Muhammad, you're a lonely man. Why don't you get married? It's about time. You're 20, you're a young man, fit. He said, how can I get married? I don't have any money. I hardly can live with my uncle and everybody else. Said, what is it to you? What if I get you a woman who is wealthy, as well as pretty, as well as she's from an honorable background? And Khadija used to share the background going all the way back from Qusay ibn Kilab as well. Her mother used to come from Yathrib, but her father goes back to the same bloodline. And Muhammad said, where is that woman? She said, Khadija bint Khuwaylid. I said, Khadija, where would I get to Khadija? She is a wealthy woman. She is someone who all the men of Mecca have asked her hand in marriage and she refused them and rejected them all. How would she accept me, a young man? She was herself, she was old as well. She was 40 when he was 25. He said, don't leave it to me. If you agree, I will sort it out. He said, okay, if you can, go for it. So she did. She went, and then he spoke to his uncle, and his uncle went to her uncle Waraq ibn Nawfal, they say. He was her uncle as well, who was a Christian. And we'll come to how he became Christian, because it's a very important story of Waraq ibn Nawfal. And subhanAllah, it happened, and the dowry was 20 camels. And his uncles just shared amongst themselves, got the collection, bought the 20 camels, and handed them to Khadija as dowry. Khadija radiallahu anha just was so satisfied and happy with her marriage. He was so happy, subhanAllah. Allah has now made him wealthy, husband of a woman who is known to be a very well respected woman and protected herself, not one of these losers. And he carried on doing the trade for her now as her husband. He didn't have to travel himself, but at least even if he didn't travel, he would negotiate with the men who do the traveling and the accountant work. She didn't have to do it. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He gave him from Khadija Al-Qasim, who was his elder boy. And he died, some say, at the age of 2 years old. And he had Abdullah, who was also nicknamed At-Tayyib and At-Tahir. There's a mix of how many children, boys were they, At-Tayyib, At-Tahir, Abdullah and Al-Qasim, 4 of them. But the documentation is there 2, but Abdullah had 2 other names. And again, he died at a young age. His daughters, all of them lived longer. Of course, they died in his life, but they all became Muslim. Ruqayya wa Zaynab wa Kulthum wa Fatima radiyallahu anhum ajma'in. And Fatima is the only one who died after her father, 6 months after his death. So all his children were from Khadija, and he never married another woman with Khadija. And this is a lot of answer to people who talk about, the Prophet used to be polygamy, a womanizer, this and that. Hang on, he only married one woman who was 15 years older than him, had children from her, and did not have any wife at that stage other than her. So if he was a womanizer, as they claim, hasha, he would have married more than one then. She's older, I need a younger one. I need a virgin, but there was for him, he was a dedicated man. When he married after Islam, the other wives, it was not for just the sake of marriage. Of course, number 1, it was order from Allah, he wouldn't do it without. Number 2, it was to raise the status of some people. It was to show their status that I married the daughter of this person. A man dies, his wife is lonely, he would marry her to keep her protected, although she's an elderly woman. But there was reason. So he was not just a fanatic for marriage. Khadija radiallahu anha helped him with all his money, and he got out from poverty to wealth, and now he learned how to become a wealthy person and how to deal with money, how to be fair. You know, when you're poor, you say, yeah, I must be fair, so Allah can give me a bit more. Now you're rich, so you can sneak a little bit of pennies aside. But this is another lesson, that honesty continues. Being wealthy or being poor. You deal with, when you're poor, you deal with people who are coming to you from the top as you need them. When you're wealthy, you're dealing with people as you are the one who have the upper hand. On both aspects, Allah has put him in all eventualities to learn these things. Of course, during this period, the Kaaba there was a bit of flood, and there were too many kiswa on top of it, so it started being shaky, and it was about to be destroyed, and decided to rebuild the Kaaba. I can say for the page. So I'll stop, inshallah, after this story and continue after that. When they decided they want to build the Kaaba, they could not think, how can we get the money for it? They gathered all the Quraysh together and said, we need money. So a story said someone was there doing incense around the Kaaba, and fire caught the cloth on it. Others say because it was a bit rain, it was so heavy from all the cloth, top one on top of other. No matter which reason it was, they need to rebuild the Kaaba. The Kaaba needed to be rebuilt from stone, not from mud. They needed someone who understands how to build stone. They didn't know how to do it. Sayyidina Ibrahim built it many moons before. They don't know how it's done. They build their houses from mud. And then, where are we going to get the money for it? So they gathered all the money, and they made a decision that no money of interest rate enters in this money. It must be pure, no riba. No money of, any false money from zina should enter with. Because some of them used to be pimps, and they had that money. They didn't want any of that type of money entering. They wanted only pure money. So they gathered money and said, okay, we have it, but how can we get someone who knows how to build with stone? And if we are to build with the stone and the bricks, we need wood. They don't have these long pieces of wood to stabilize it. SubhanAllah, as they're talking, someone comes to Mecca and said, guys, there's a big ship that crashed on the coast of Jeddah. Let's go and see if we can help people. And people of Quraysh were saying, SubhanAllah, there we go, that's the first thing. We have wood. They went to see who they can help, and they brought all pieces of large and long parts of wood that they needed for the rebuild. As they were talking, there was a slave being sold in Mecca who was Qibti from Egypt. And Egyptians build from stone, and they know how to build in that matter. So they bought this man themselves and said, okay, let's ask him that. Yes, I know how to build, fine. This is second thing. Now we have the money. They got the money, but the money was not enough to rebuild the whole Kaaba as it was. Before they destroyed, they were sitting and saying, how can we now knock it down? This is the house of Allah. And they remembered they were almost all present, if not some of them, when Abraha wanted to destroy the Kaaba. So they still remember the event, what Allah did to them, wanting to destroy the Kaaba. How can we do it now? So that was a dilemma to everybody. The only one who said, I will start, was Al-Walid ibn al-Mughira. Said, okay, we are doing it for the sake of Allah, to rebuild his house, not for the sake of destruction. Allah will support us. So he took his sledgehammer and started hammering. And called his son, come and help me. Started hammering, and they broke part of it, but still a big building, and got so tired. And they looked at the Quraysh, said, come and help us. Look, nothing happened to us. Come and help. He said, no, we'll wait till the morning. If you're still alive and healthy, we will help you. If you're not, we'll repair what you broke and stand aside. SubhanAllah, the following morning he came out with his children and started hammering more, and Quraysh said, okay, SubhanAllah, and they started digging, breaking the walls and breaking and saying, Wallahi, ya Allah, we're only doing it for your sake, making dua, that we're not doing it for the sake of destruction. And they rebuilt the Kaabah. Their money was only enough to build the square that we know now. The Kaabah used to have Hijr Ismail as part of it, Al-Hatim, that was all enclosed as a high wall. But their money was so short that they had to be short and just built that little wall as Al-Hatim to mark the edges of the Kaabah. So people who pray in the Hatim, it's like praying inside the Kaabah. This is the interesting part of learning about these facts. And the Kaabah before had 2 doors at the ground level. People would enter through one door and go through the other. But Quraysh, being the pride of the Arabs at that stage, raised the door and made steps. So only people they will allow, or they count as people who are respectful enough to reach there, will be allowed in. Hence the door is higher level. I think I will stop here so I don't get carried on with time. Inshallah, next week we'll talk about Al-Hajar Al-Aswad, placing it in where it is, and the rest of the story. Jazakumullahu khairan. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. جزاكم الله خيرا.